Calgary is known as being a fairly nice place to live with world-class mountain views, strong economy, low taxes, and some of the most amazing neighborhoods in the entire country. But it's not all great, and in this video, I'll let you know the top things many people dislike about living in Calgary. And by the end of this video, if you are still thinking of moving here, I'd love to be a resource and help you out. If you go to the pinned comment, you can call, text, email, or download a buyer's guide, seller's guide, or a relocation guide, all free for download. All right, let's get into it. And to make it a bit easier, I actually went to AI and I asked them to come up with the top 50 things that people generally dislike about living in Calgary. And here is the list right here. So I'll have my notes with me to make it a little bit easier. And to start off with, number one is harsh winters. Temperatures can plummet below -30 with heavy snowfall. Now, this is true and false. It can definitely get very cold in Calgary, down to -40. It is rare, though. It usually happens once or twice per winter. I would say the heavy snowfall is a bit false. I'm sure it can snow here, but the prevailing trends in southern Alberta is dry, windy, and it can get very cold, but it doesn't snow all that much. If you go to the mountains, sure, it snows a lot, but in Calgary, we don't have a huge snowfall compared to other cities in Canada, especially like out east. Like in Quebec, they have a huge snowfall in the Maritimes. You won't see like a meter of snow dump in Calgary all that often. And point number two, Chinook winds. Rapid temperature fluctuations due to Chinook winds can lead to health issues like migraines and joint pain. Now, I've never heard about Chinooks causing joint pain. That's a new one for me, so I'm not sure if I necessarily believe that. But people do get headaches with Chinooks. I've never had it myself, and I would say, if I'm not a doctor, but if I were to guess, I would say maybe 10% of the public has issues with Chinooks. For most people, it's a blessing. It can go from -30 to +10 in a matter of hours. So for most, it's a good thing, but there are a few people out there that do have really bad headaches with Chinooks. I actually had a couple that moved from Ontario a year or two ago, and they lasted in Calgary about 1 year, and they moved back to Ontario because the wife had such severe headaches from the Chinooks. So it can be bad for some people, but for most, they're actually quite good. Number three is hailstorms. Calgary is part of the hailstorm alley, so we experience frequent and damaging hailstorms. This is definitely true, and I would say more so for the northeast part of Calgary seems to get hit the hardest, but it can hail anywhere in Calgary. Usually it's not damaging, but every couple of years there's a big hailstorm, and it can damage cars, sidings, roofs. Tornadoes are an issue, more so in central Alberta than in Calgary, but they can definitely happen here. And I've had listings that were shredded by hail before the buyer took ownership and caused insurance issues. But for the most part, they do happen frequently, but they're not that damaging. But they can be quite severe from time to time. And number four, unpredictable weather. Sudden weather changes can disrupt plans and affect daily routines. This is definitely true. I'm a big golfer, and it seems like whenever I want to golf on like a Sunday, there's like a snowstorm, or it's like hailing or raining. But during the week, it's really nice. So right now it's end of April in Calgary, and it can be like +20. We've had some really nice days this month, and we've also had snowstorms. So our weather is just all over the map, and it can definitely affect your plans and your daily routines. If there's a long weekend, it seems like Alberta is cursed, and it's always like rotten weather. So our weather is just all over the map. It's not the hottest, it's not the coldest, but it's definitely very unpredictable. And point number five is the dry climate. So the arid environment can lead to dry skin and respiratory issues for some individuals. Now, I've never heard of our dry climate causing respiratory issues. That's a new one for me, so I'm not sure if that's true or false. But what is true is definitely super dry here, especially if you're coming from anywhere east of Winnipeg. Winnipeg and east, those areas are all quite humid compared to Alberta, and you'll be in for a bit of a shock. Like, you'll need to bring, sunglasses. Definitely very, very bright, very sunny, very dry. You'll want to have chapstick. It is just a bit of a shock, especially if you're coming from like Ontario, where it's super humid. It's quite the opposite here. And point number six is short summers. So warm weather is brief, limiting outdoor activities to a few months each year. Yeah, I would say that's true. Calgary definitely has a shorter summer compared to other places in Canada. I can recall when I went to university, I was living here in Calgary and I moved to Vancouver, and I think it was like end of April. And there was a snowstorm at the time. And when I got to Vancouver, it was like they were like 2 to 3 months ahead of us. So our seasons are definitely not the best in Calgary. If you're a golfer, I would say the golf season is like May to September. And, June, July, August are our best months, but that's similar for most Canadian provinces. So I would say that our summer season is definitely short in Calgary, a bit shorter compared to other cities in Canada. And winter definitely comes fast here. It seems like it's summer, and then all of a sudden there's like a few weeks of fall, and then bang, we're into winter. So long winters and short summers, not the best if you're living in Calgary. And point number 7 is air quality issues. So proximity to wildfires can lead to smoky conditions and poor air quality during certain seasons. Now, this is, I would say it's partly true. Again, I'm born and raised here, and forest fire smoke, it seems like it's only been an issue since like 2017, 2018. I don't recall this ever being an issue when I was younger, but lately it has become a big issue, and our summers can be ruined by forest fire smoke. It sucks. We have short summers, and all of a sudden it's nice outside, but like you can't even go outside because the conditions are so bad. Though last year wasn't too bad, but I would say ever since like 2017, 2018, it has become a bit of an issue. I don't know what's happening with the forests, if they're overgrown or if we don't have the proper forestry management, or maybe it's climate change. I don't know, but it has become definitely a bit of an issue in the last few years. And point number 8 is limited rainfall. So the city experiences fewer rainy days, which can affect local agriculture and water supply. Definitely true. Calgary is a semi-arid climate, and we don't get all that much rain. And when it does rain here, it's quite vicious. It's coming at you sideways at 80 kilometers an hour. And I would say the rainiest month here is actually July and August. We get some vicious thunder showers, hail, tornadoes, and stuff like that. So the weather is not the best here. It can be quite vicious, and it can rain really hard, but it doesn't last very long. It's common that you could have like a crazy rain shower with lightning and thunder, and it lasts like 20 minutes and then it's gone. It's not like Vancouver where when the rain settles in, it can rain for like an entire month straight. That's not the case in Calgary. It just comes down all of a sudden, and then it's nice afterwards. And point number 9 is snow removal delays. Heavy snowfall can overwhelm city services, leading to delayed snow removal. Again, we don't have a huge snowfall here, but I find that the last couple of years, it seems like the snow removal has taken a lot longer than it used to. And the gravel that we put on the roads, it seems delayed as well. So this one I think is partly true, is that there are delays, but we don't have a huge snowfall again. I'm sure it can snow here, just the prevailing trend is more like cold, dry, sunny versus heavy snowfall. And the last point here regarding the climate is icy roads. So frequent freeze-thaw cycles can result in hazardous driving conditions. This is definitely true. If it's like -5, -10 in the snows, it's not that bad. The problem I see is when it gets to like -20, -30, the snow on the roads gets like packed right down, and the really cold temperatures, it makes it almost like a skating rink. It's really hard and icy, and that's tough to drive on, especially for newcomers to Calgary who are not used to that. It can be a bit scary. So that's more the case when it gets really, really cold, and that's definitely true. And moving along, let's talk about urban infrastructure and some of the concerns with it. So point number 11 is urban sprawl. So the city's expansion leads to longer commutes and increased reliance on vehicles. This is definitely true. Calgary covers a massive land area. If you were to take Calgary and superimpose it on Vancouver or Toronto, for Vancouver, you'd see parts of Calgary on the North Shore, Richmond, Vancouver, Coquitlam. It covers a huge area. And same thing with Toronto. If you were to put Calgary on top of Toronto, it would probably go into parts of like Oakville and Brampton and stuff like that. So it just covers a huge area, and a car is a must. Definitely, if you're moving to Calgary, you need a car for sure. Otherwise, you probably won't like it too much. The city is just too large of an area. Point number 12 is traffic congestion. So major roads like Deerfoot Trail often experience heavy traffic, especially during peak hours. This one is not true. I think Calgary has some of the best traffic in all of Canada. It's way better than Winnipeg, Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal. It's easy to drive here. The city is about 1.6 million, I believe. So any big city will have some traffic concerns. But drive around Calgary, then go to Toronto or Vancouver, and you'll be like just smiling. It's way easier. So I don't necessarily believe that one. Number 13, limited public transit. The public transportation system doesn't cover all areas effectively, making a car essential. Our transit system is not that bad. It does cover a huge area, but again, Calgary is so big it can't cover everything. So I think a car is a must. But if you live near the C train, you can definitely get by on that. If you live in the inner city, you can walk around. There's more train stops. So I would say definitely you want to have a car in Calgary, but if you don't want the car life, I would definitely consider the inner city. It might be a bit easier to get around. So our transit's not terrible, but it could definitely be improved upon. It's nothing like going to Europe or like Japan or anything like that. So it's definitely a car city, but their transit is respectable, but it's not outstanding. Point number 14, overcrowded schools. So rapid population growth has led to overcrowded classrooms and strained educational resources. So basically my whole life, Calgary's been growing almost every year nonstop, and that's always been an issue my entire life. So I think that's a problem with any city that's growing. And Calgary, we've seen the huge increases the past few years, and that's definitely a concern. But it's always been that way, and it seems to work out for everybody still. Point number 15, aging infrastructure. Some parts of the city's infrastructure are outdated and need of upgrades. This one, I don't necessarily believe that. Calgary is a very new and modern city. Like an old property in Calgary is like 1980s. So everything is somewhat new here. Like Calgary grew massively from like 2005 until the present. So like a huge chunk of the city is like from the 2000s. So I wouldn't say that Calgary's infrastructure is that outdated. So I would say we're on the newer side compared to most cities in North America. Number 16, water supply issues. So recent infrastructure problems have led to water shortages and boil water advisories. This one is partly true just because there was a water main that broke down last year. I'm not sure what caused it, but my entire life I've only seen or heard of one issue like this. So sure, it happened last year, but this is not a very common event. So I wouldn't say that this is happening every single year and we have to boil our water here. That's kind of outrageous. You can drink the tap water here and it's totally fine. And again, this is just like a one-off as far as I'm concerned. It happened last year, but it's not happening every single year. And point number 17 is flood risks. So certain neighborhoods are prone to flooding during heavy rains or rapid snow melt. This is definitely true. I lived in Mission during the last major flood, which I think was in 2013. That was a once in a 100-year flood. And it actually went all around my building. It flooded everything, but it didn't flood my building for some reason. So it's kind of random how it worked. So there are areas along the Elbow and the Bow Rivers that were flooded. And you can actually find the map online with the flood zones and how it actually all unfolded. Now, is that going to happen again? I'm sure anything can happen, but I think the city has made some progress alleviating that so it won't happen again or as badly. So they've dammed certain areas and had some barricades put up. So they are working on that. But sure, the Bow River can flood with heavy rain. If there's an exceptional snowfall in the mountains, that would definitely also have an impact on that and how fast it melts. But again, that was a once in a 100-year flood. Any city that's on a river can flood. So this is not like a specific Calgary thing. But sure, it can happen here. Point number 18, limited bike lanes. Cyclists may find the city's bike lane network insufficient for safe commuting. I don't believe that at all. There are bike lanes all over Calgary. If you go to the bike lane map the city of Calgary has, they are all over the place. So I'm not sure if I believe that at all. I think this one's completely false, to be honest. And number 19, parking challenges. So downtown areas often have limited and expensive parking options. This is true and false. If you use the city of Calgary parking meters, they're actually quite cheap. But if you go to any like private parking stall, they charge you an arm and a leg. So I'd say yes and no. The thing I hate is that in some areas you wouldn't think that you'd have to pay for parking, but you do. Like they're far away from downtown and they're asking you to pay. Like I think that's kind of ridiculous. And I hate paying on Saturday. I think it used to be free, but I think Nenshi was the one, or his council decided to make pay for parking on Saturday as well. So there are some gripes that I have with our parking situation. But for the most part, if you use the City of Calgary meter, it's not too expensive. And the last point on infrastructure is construction delays. So ongoing construction projects can lead to traffic disruptions and detours. Yeah, this is always true in Calgary. The city is always growing. There's construction everywhere. Right now, I think all of Deerfoot Trail is under construction. So yeah, definitely true. There's always construction here, but the city is also always growing. So you can't have both. You can't have, a big city that's growing and not have, traffic challenges. And moving along, let's talk about economic and financial factors. And the first point here is the cost of living. So while lower than some Canadian cities, living expenses in Calgary are on the rise. Definitely true. Ever since COVID, our property values have really shot up. I can recall like in 2019, 2020, you could buy homes in like Marlborough and Rundle in the 300s, like single family homes in the 300s. Nowadays, some of those homes are going in like the 600s. It doesn't make any sense to me. And if you combine that with just everything else is more expensive, all the taxes we have to pay, everything is so difficult right now. Everything is so expensive. And, this is not an isolated Calgary problem. This is all across Canada. But yeah, Calgary used to be one of the cheaper places to buy properties, but now it's getting quite expensive. And number 22, property taxes. So residents have experienced significant increases in property taxes over the years. I think everyone in Canada is always griping about this. They seem to always go up. I think one of the bigger problems right now in Calgary is not so much property taxes, it's condo fees and utilities are just crazy expensive. So there's definitely some issues with the cost of living in Calgary. Number 23 is economic dependence on oil. So the city's economy is heavily tied to the oil industry, leading to boom and bust cycles. I would say all of Alberta is tied to the oil and gas sectors. And the province can go with how the oil prices are going. So it can be great or it can be falling apart. Right now, things are pretty good in Alberta. But I would say that we are leveling off a bit. The oil prices are going down. So we were like pretty hot, but now I would say we're just cooling off a little bit. I'd say things are still pretty good, but it's also a very uncertain time, especially with all the Donald Trump tariffs that are on the horizon. So things are good, but there could be some clouds on the horizon. Number 24, job market volatility. So economic downturns can lead to job losses and reduced employment opportunities. I can definitely recall this when I was selling real estate. I started in 2012. Things were pretty good. 2012, 2013, 2014, it was booming. And then the rug got pulled out, the oil prices collapsed, and all sorts of people were fired in Alberta. There was tons of layoffs and firings and companies relocating. And it was a tough time from 2015 to 2020. We were in a bit of a recession in Alberta. And so we can have volatile times in Calgary due to the oil prices. And number 25, I've already talked about this, and that is high utility costs. So heating and electricity bills can be substantial, especially during winter months. I don't know what's happened the last 3, 4, 5 years, but the utilities in Alberta have like skyrocketed and they're quite expensive. So this is definitely concerning. And I haven't really heard of any politicians who are willing to tackle this issue. So it's definitely a problem and it's just super expensive in Alberta. Point number 26 is insurance premiums. So frequent hailstorms and weather-related damages can lead to higher insurance costs. This is definitely true. I think Alberta must be like X'd off many insurance companies' lists. They must not like us. I think with our bad weather, it affects auto insurance. With hailstorms and tornadoes, that affects house insurance. So we have lots of things going against us. Long winters, people are more likely to crash in the wintertime. So insurance is definitely expensive in Calgary. My car insurance right now, if you're curious, I pay about $150 per month, and I've never been in an accident. So I carry extra liability because sometimes I bring clients with me, but it's still quite expensive in Alberta. 27, limited economic diversification. The city's economy lacks significant diversification beyond the energy sector. I don't know if I necessarily believe this. I think we've made some decent strides in the past 5 years. The tech sector is growing here. Besides oil and gas, we also have a big financial sector, engineering, accounting, law. So I think there are more sectors than just the oil and gas. Tourism is also quite big in Alberta, farming. So it's not all about oil and gas. It's just that is like the main part of our economy here, but we have others as well. Number 28, housing market fluctuations. So property values can be volatile, affecting homeowners and investors. Yeah, being licensed since 2012, I've seen booms and busts. The last few years, our values have really shot up, but this can turn around as well. And from 2015 to 2020, we were stagnating. We probably lost at least 30% of the value of properties. It wasn't until 2022, I'm guessing, where we actually caught up to the 2014 levels. So I'm just estimating, but we can have boom and bust periods, and that can definitely affect the housing market. And it's not always going to go up. There's going to be a period where it's going to crash. So it's like the stock market. It can't always go up, and Alberta is no different. 29, retail store closures. I'm not sure where they're getting this, but they're saying economic challenges have led to the closure of some local businesses and retail outlets. Right now, Alberta's economy is doing pretty good, so I'm not hearing a lot of news about closures. So I don't think this one is correct. I mean, I got this from AI, so they're not always right. And for this one, I don't think they're correct on it. And number 30, limited public funding. So budget constraints can affect public services and infrastructure development. So I would say this is true and false. I would say from the province, we do get, decent funding. I would say I would say Calgary and Edmonton receive the most funding from the provincial government. But federally, I would say Alberta is a net contributor, and we give more to Ottawa than we get back. And it seems like most of Ottawa's funding is directed, at Quebec and Ontario and other jurisdictions. Not as much comes back to Alberta. So I don't think Calgary is on the radar so much in terms of federal funding. And a good example of this would be the Green Line. I've heard about this since like 2013, 14, and it's still not built. I don't think it's under construction yet. And different levels of government have come along. They've backed out. It's like pulling teeth to get this approved. So I do think that we do have some challenges with infrastructure funding in Calgary. And moving along, let's talk about social and cultural aspects. And the first point here is limited nightlife. So AI says that compared to other major cities, Calgary's nightlife and entertainment options are limited. So Calgary's not known as being like a sin city or like a resort destination. It's more like a regular city that people live and work in. So it's not the most happening place, but there are still decent nightlife options. You won't see like theme parks and stuff like that in Calgary. So it's a bit tame, but it's not dead. It's just not as exciting as maybe going to downtown Vancouver or downtown Toronto or Montreal. But it's not terrible. It's just not known as being a party city. Unless the Stampede is happening, of course. Then it's like 10 days of parties. But again, that's only 10 days out of the year. And number 32, the cultural scene. So the arts and cultural scene is growing, but still lacks the vibrancy of larger metropolitan areas. I would say this is, I'd say it's true for the most part. In my opinion, I think Calgary is like a working class city that is very outdoorsy. Not the most artsy city in Canada. Like if you go to like Commercial Drive in Vancouver, you're not going to see anything like that in Calgary. Or just walking down Queen Street in Vancouver. I don't think Calgary's at that level yet. It is growing, but I don't think we're the most artsy city in Canada. I would say that Vancouver, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Toronto, Montreal are all more artsy than Calgary, in my opinion. Some might disagree, but that's just my thought on this point. And number 33, I've got a political one for you, and that is the conservative social climate. So some residents find the city's social and political climate to be more conservative. Now, some will love this and some will hate it. And I know a lot of people from Ontario that have moved out here for this specific reason. They wanted to be in a more conservative environment, not so much a liberal environment. So it depends on what you're looking for. Now, today is Wednesday, and we just had a federal election on Monday. And so we have a liberal federal government. But if you look at the map of Alberta, it went almost all conservative. There's only one liberal seat in all of Calgary. I think there's one in Edmonton and one NDP seat, and the rest is all blue. I think most of Saskatchewan is all blue, and the interior of BC is also almost all blue. So this part of the world is definitely more conservative thinking than liberal. So you might like it, you might hate it, but I would say overall everyone seems to get along in Alberta. Number 34 is diversity challenges. While improving, Calgary is still working towards greater cultural and ethnic diversity. This one is not true at all. I would say Calgary is one of the most diverse places in all of Canada, if not in the top 20 in the world. Calgary is extremely diverse. Just go to Cross Iron Mills Mall on the weekend and you will see how diverse the city really is. It is, when I was a kid, maybe it was mostly white, but nowadays I would say it's 50% white, 50% a mix of everything else. So Calgary is super diverse, and this one I would say is false. And number 35, limited public events. So outside of major festivals, there may be fewer public events and gatherings. This one I'm not too sure about. I don't like crowds and waiting in lines, so I don't really go to any of these festivals. I typically travel somewhere during the Stampede as well. So this one I'm just not too sure about, but Calgary is not known as being a festival city for the most part. I would say Edmonton is definitely more of a festival city than Calgary is. But this one I'll take a pass on it. I'm not too familiar with this because I don't really go to that many festivals. And number 36 is community engagement. Newcomers may find it challenging to integrate into established communities. Again, Calgary is so diverse these days. I'm not sure if I believe this. It seems like there are different people from all over the world, all over Calgary. So I'm not sure if that one is true, in my opinion. And point number 37 is language barriers. So non-English speakers might face challenges due to limited multilingual services. And this is probably true. I think if you're moving to Alberta and you don't speak English, you probably won't like it, and it might be very difficult for you to integrate. It's an English-speaking province. There are pockets in Alberta of like French communities, but for the most part, this is an English-dominated province, and if you don't speak English, it'll be tough for sure. Number 38, healthcare wait times. Access to certain medical specialists can involve long wait periods. So I get crazy pollen allergies, especially around this time of the year in Alberta, April to May. If you want to see like an allergy doctor, for example, it's like a year-long wait. So this is a problem all across Canada. It's not Calgary specific, but if you want to see a doctor to get something done, expect to wait in Canada. It is free, but the consequence of that is that it takes forever to get anything done. And point number 39, educational resources. So some schools may lack advanced programs or extracurricular activities. I don't believe this at all. I think a lot of schools have all sorts of different programs. I can recall as a kid, we used to go to Winter Green for skiing. I think it was every Tuesday and Thursday, and that's just one example. But I would say most schools in Calgary have all sorts of after-hours activities. So this one is false for sure. And point number 40, let's talk about the public service. Navigating the public services can be complex for new residents. I find any kind of government website is extremely confusing, even for people who are born and raised here. This one's definitely true. I hate going to any kind of city website. They just make it so complicated. So if you're a newcomer and you're trying to figure that stuff out, definitely that'll be difficult. It's difficult for me as well. So this one I would say is true. And moving along, let's talk about the environmental issues in Calgary. And the first one here is number 41, air pollution. Industrial activities and traffic contribute to air quality issues. I would say this is false for the most part. It is a big city, so you're going to have some pollution, but Calgary is not like it's not a very blue collar, heavy industry city. I'd say for the most part, Calgary is a very white collar city, lots of head office type jobs. So I would say for the most part, Calgary is very clean and pollution is not that big of an issue. But again, it's a big city. There is some pollution, but we're not getting like acid rain and issues like that. So for this one, I'd say it's false for the most part. And number 42 is allergies. So seasonal allergens can affect residents, especially during spring and fall. Definitely true. I get really bad hay fever from about mid-April to about mid-May, and then grasses and the weeds come out. So definitely allergies are a problem for me in Alberta, but they're bad probably anywhere in Canada, so it's not a specific Calgary problem. But yeah, it's grasslands in Alberta, so if you are allergic to grass and weeds, you will have some issues in Alberta, but not to the point for most people that it's going to be damaging. It's just you'll be sneezing and watery eyes during certain parts of the year. Number 43, limited green spaces. Now, this one is not true. I can tell you right off the bat. They say, while there are parks, some areas lack sufficient green spaces for recreation. Calgary is one of the greenest cities in the entire world. There's huge amounts of park space here. There must be 1,000 dog parks in Calgary. And we've got some parks that are absolutely massive, like Nose Hill, Fish Creek. So this one is definitely not true. Calgary, I think, has some of the biggest park spaces in the entire world. And so definitely that is not true at all. Number 44 is wildlife encounters. Proximity to natural areas can lead to encounters with wildlife posing safety concerns. So if you go out hiking to Kananaskis or Banff, there are bears out there and wolves and moose and deer, elk. Yeah, so this is a wild part of the world, and you will definitely see animals like that. I've heard of bears being found in Calgary. I've actually seen a moose in the city limits. So you will definitely see wildlife in Alberta. I've seen lynx and bobcats. There's coyotes in Calgary. People like that though, so it's good or bad, but you will see animals out here in Alberta. It's quite wild, especially if you go west of the city into the mountains. Number 45, water conservation. This one is false as well. Last year there was a water main break and it caused some water issues throughout Calgary. We had to conserve water, but that was like a one-off. That doesn't happen every single year. And so that one I would say is false. Sure, water mains can break, but it's not happening all the time in Calgary. And number 46 is waste management. So recycling and waste disposal services may have limitations in certain neighborhoods. I think this is mostly false. Maybe in some brand new areas that are still being developed, that might be an issue. But for the places that people are actually living in Calgary, there shouldn't be any issues with garbage recycling. I think it's actually pretty good. So that one I would say is false for the most part. Number 47 is noise pollution. So construction and traffic can contribute to elevated noise levels in urban areas. Yeah, this is true for any city. You're going to have sirens going off and construction sounds. Calgary is no different. This is the same for any city in the world. So I'm just going to breeze over that one. And number 48, I think AI was kind of stretching here to find 50 points that people didn't like, and that is urban heat islands. Concrete heavy areas can experience higher temperatures during the summer. So whatever that means, sure, the cities are usually a little bit hotter compared to the outskirts because there's more concrete. That's not like a huge issue though. And Calgary's not known for being a super hot place to begin with. So that's a non-issue for me. And number 49 is pest control. Certain areas may experience issues with pests like mosquitoes during warmer months. I would say areas that are by the river might have more issues with mosquitoes, or the lake communities. Around the river, you might get skunks and animals like that. I'd say for the most part, Calgary doesn't have a huge pest problem. We don't have raccoons here that I've seen, not like in Vancouver or Toronto where they're like roaming down the streets. We don't really have that problem here. So I would say that's like a minor problem in Calgary. It's not that big of a deal. And the last point here, and I think AI was stretching to find 50 points, and that is light pollution. City lights can affect views of the night sky and disrupt natural rhythms. Calgary is by no means Manhattan. It's not that crazy here. So this one, I would just, it's a non-issue. It's not that bright, and the light pollution here is not that big of a concern. Well, there you have it. That's my take on the 50 things that some people dislike about living in Calgary. If you are thinking about buying, selling, or relocating to the Calgary area, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. I'd love to help you out, and I will see you on the next video.